We're live! With
Okay.
video, even better.
That is better.
That was a happy struggle that no one else needs to know about.
Well, the mad scientist is jet setting
Fine.
once again, so it is your side co-host, I suppose.
It's us.
It's the Dr. Mike and Chantea show for Fun Friday tonight here. So we got this. Big mad scientist, have fun. I don't know what state you're over right now, but he is on his way to Los Angeles to head down to Laguna Beach to interview Dr. Baker. So stay tuned with that.
Rough assignment.
I know. It's tough being Jim. It really is. So he'll get out there, give us all the latest and greatest on the carnivore diet and everything that pertains to the Keto Project. So Dr. Mike is going to do a little quick check-in and let us know how he's doing on his grass-fed and finished, keyword, and finished beef.
Which, if you haven't been watching and actually knows what it means that the cow was fed grass the entire time, not just the entire time until the last 2 weeks when they shove them with a bunch of hormones to make them larger and give them grains. So it's better, much, and I can tell. Like, I mean, it's
He's still able
everyone's
to
pointing
do
at it.
these.
Yeah, I actually want to eat. That's the biggest thing, and the cravings, which those just don't stop. But so Instagram has been great because I've now shared about 3,000 photos of food with some of my friends and a bunch of things that I'll probably make versions of later. But overall, I'm doing well. Like, everyone keeps telling me that I look good and look thin, which is odd because I haven't lost it. Weight hasn't moved.
Okay.
But I think everyone expected me to be sick, and I'm not. So
He's not. He
that's
actually had
nice.
some really good numbers on ARX earlier today, too. So his strength has not completely...
It's actually,
dissipated.
it's coming back
Mhm.
up, which is great. So I got close to a few PRs that I haven't hit in
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 months. Go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah. He's getting back up there.
And the energy's good. So I'm fine. There's been no headaches, no random vomiting. It's been so much better than Burger
It's so
King.
much better than Burger King. Okay.
Still looking forward to getting cheese and vegetables back. Dear Lord, am I excited for vegetables.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I like my veggies.
I can care less about fruit. I'll trade fruit in for tequila.
Totally worth it.
Apple a day, man.
This is a sober Friday, fun Friday here. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No wine with us. The mad scientist isn't here to
Mad
keep us on
scientist,
track or to give us funny
exactly.
looks for saying things.
Exactly. That's okay. There'll be funny things said anyway.
I love looked at really, guys.
It'll be cheeky.
Don't be
There
so
it is.
asinine already.
Fine. Okay, so bring us to our topic of the evening, Dr. Mike.
Soy boy.
A who boy?
Soy boy.
Okay then.
So I knew Soy Boy Phenomenon as it was like a anti-health movement.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you want to call it. Of the idea that, not the idea, the concept that testosterone is plummeting in people. We're going to look at mostly in men. But in general, our testosterone levels are going down. This isn't just as we age as it's supposed to kind of do, but even kids are being born with less testosterone. And where it comes into play is that even boys that aren't necessarily obese, they're getting a little bit of extra padding here at the ages where they
The
shouldn't.
boy boobs.
A little bit more curvy pelvises are getting a little bit wider. Things are considered with more higher estrogen, and this is happening at people of all ages. So the soy boy concept came in of soy has these things called phytoestrogens. We'll talk a lot more about that pretty much now.
Yay! Phytoestrogens.
And is it actually to blame for estrogen levels skyrocketing in people? But I shouldn't say it's the fun part, but interesting part I found is soy boys actually become a very derogatory term, I guess, over social media. Like now that like the wussy guy.
Okay.
Didn't know that, but I guess
Okay.
people are throwing that out there.
I can see that.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
More feminine person
Uh-huh.
is now a soy boy. I think it's kind of fun to say. Alliteration's cool, but don't bully.
Yeah.
Now let's find out why there might be this soy boy phenomenon.
Correct.
So we'll go a little bit on first of why actually it's soy boy. So there's this thing called phytoestrogens, also known as isoflavones, and we'll see how much I change the way I pronounce that.
Uh-huh.
But in short, they mimic estrogen. Mimic. So not completely the same as estrogen,
Like
much
a
weaker.
baby estrogen.
Yeah, you want to go through some nerdy science out here?
Yeah.
So cool. The way what I mean by mimic is everything that goes in our body, hormones, vitamins, minerals, etc., glucose. They're supposed to fit these little receptors with a specific shape in our body. So like we have
Like big puzzle pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like that game as a kid where you're trying to put the square block in the circular hole and don't know why it doesn't
Yeah,
go.
we've all done that.
Yeah, it's like the bitch is gonna go.
Yeah.
But our bodies work the same way with receptors, where estrogen has its own receptor where estrogen fits into it. Well, these phytoestrogens kind of fit, so they go in there and they act somewhat as estrogen, or they can also block estrogen, and that varies on things. Again, I'll just say what we're going to talk about in the next, I don't know, however long this lasts. And that's really the point of it. It works a little bit as estrogen. There's different times it does with different people. So right away, I'll say if you eat a bunch of soy, you will not necessarily become more feminine.
Okay.
But you might.
If you have the receptors.
And there's a lot of other things that come into play with estrogen other than just soy. It's not like that's the sole reason. A lot of it's our water supply. That gets scary and fun in a little bit.
Do you know, if you had your water tested,
Yeah,
more in it than you realize.
Yeah, actually, it's really scary. So this way I don't go rambling. I'll say that for later as planned. That gets kind of cool and creepy. But let's talk about quickly what estrogens is. Because otherwise, I just say estrogen and everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's a hormone women have.
It's a female hormone, right?
It is.
Your estrogen's out of whack. You're all PMSy. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not so true.
You know, and I keep pluralizing. Pluralizing? Did I conjugate?
You did.
I'm adding an S to estrogen to make it estrogens because there's more than just one. There's a crap ton of them. Estradiol is a big one. They're just going under one kind of roof, we'll call it.
Umbrella.
They're the main sex hormone for women. Guys need them too. We're supposed to have so much estrogen. If we don't, then we have other health issues. They're big on cognitive, mostly brain. It's Friday. Memory and cognitive. So depression, actually, we have too high or too low estrogen, we're much more likely to get depressed. Much more. And then if you have too high of estrogen, other things go whack, like testosterone tends to plummet.
And we know what happens when you have low testosterone.
Boop.
You have low performance.
It's also very cardiovascular healthy if it's in the right range, because it does help monitor our LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol.
Low, you want it low.
Yep. So, what happened? I'm going to talk a lot about problems with having too high estrogen. So
Okay.
if we're saying all these things about you don't want estrogen too high, this raises estrogen, blah, 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 let's say why it's actually a problem.
Good. Let's find out why too much estrogen is a problem.
Let's go with guys first.
Okay.
Your stuff doesn't work. Erectile dysfunction, low libido, depression, gynecomastia, which is a long-winded term for
Man boobs.
hand boobs,
Man boobs.
and weight gain and depression. Women, it messes up your menstrual cycle. I mean, in every way it can. These are details you probably know more than me, but I'll talk about them anyway. Of irregular periods. Oh, sorry, mad scientist Jim, earmuff talk. Heavy periods, spotting, more severe PMS symptoms, because who wants worse cramps?
Right.
To me, that's really common when women switch birth control or go off birth control or go on it. Everything is
Changes.
worse for a while.
Correct.
And hopefully it resets itself, but it doesn't always. Because we're not meant to have birth control. I mean, you weren't born with a birth control deficiency, but there are social reasons and other
There's
forces.
family planning reasons, there's personal preferences, but there's options besides hormonal birth control. But that's not the point here.
No, and higher estrogen increases the chances of hormonal-based cancers, which is really the scary one. And we're talking, I mean, these are very common cancers: breast, ovarian, prostate.
Those are big three.
Those are big ones. And also then having high estrogen increases clotting factors, which is why I've ranted on a few times about don't supplement calcium because it is clotting factors, because people usually get for those who are postmenopausal, estrogen rises, which, hey, more clotting factors, more increased chance for stroke and heart attack.
It's No Stroke Friday, so we don't want that.
Right.
We don't want that.
Say that for after the weekend. That was probably the first eye roll from Jim.
Maybe No Stroke Saturday.
And they get thyroid disease. I couldn't find anything directly on thyroid cancer, but malfunctioning thyroid with high estrogen.
That is a problem for many, is an improperly
Huge.
functioning thyroid.
I think I read a stat like 40%, but I see it as a lot higher. I mean, every time we run tests on someone, I'm almost expecting a thyroid dysfunction at this point.
We found I had one.
Yeah.
Made my fake T3.
That's right.
Yeah. So we talk about receptors. The body can't always tell a good hormone from a bad hormone.
Mhm.
and one can mimic the other and have absolutely no use in the human body. So getting it balanced and checked, right.
So let's talk about some of those problems in a minute. Describe a little bit more phytoestrogens. So this stuff, when I'm talking about soy, we're talking about these phytoestrogens or isoflavones. I'll probably just say soy or phytoestrogens if I feel like being smart. It's fine. Again, these are weak estrogen mimics, so they can act as estrogen acts, and there's 3 main of them. I will butcher the pronunciation once, and then I'm just going to group them all together. But we got genistein, dietazine, and glycine. I'm not going to pronounce that because they'll sound different.
Sounds great. Let's move on.
But these are the 3 main ones, and the reason why is that that's 99.9% of these phytoestrogens. You also find in other foods. Cruciferous vegetables, seeds, whole grains, not to the same extent. There's a reason why they go by this soy boy content and not the grain boy. Like, it doesn't sound as good.
No, it does not.
It just doesn't have that same little
like
ring.
Soy milk, right? So that's a big thing. Everybody likes soy milk because it's not cow milk. But how much soy milk are you drinking, right?
And should you drink it?
Yeah.
Which is a big deal.
We'll get there, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're pretty much already there. So these phytoestrogens, there's a lot of debate of they don't act as hormones or they do act as hormones. Like everything else, we know there's a debate in nutrition research. Again, a lot of it comes down to how was the study done? Was it a rat study or a person study? Odds are it was a rat study, and you can look at it for information, but not fact.
We all know that rats and humans are not the same.
They're not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna.
There's a lot of scientific experiments on animals, and they do not necessarily translate and transfer the results to the human population. So be careful.
They have different hormones. They have different levels of hormones. And their metabolism's all different. They're a lot smaller, which makes huge differences. So, and then a lot of the human studies are observational, meaning if I look back the last 20 years in this population, and then you kind of deduce something from it. So these studies are not all equal is what I'm getting at, which is a big reason why there's so much controversy in nutrition. And then money talks. So who did the study? Were they paid to do it? Were stuff paid for it?
Yeah.
So things that might increase or decrease the chances of soy causing estrogen spikes and causing some negative issues. One is, where are your hormones now? Especially in women, that's a big factor. If you have high estrogen levels, it can actually act as an anti-estrogen, meaning it will still go into that little receptor, but instead of activating it, it kind of boycotts it and says, hell no, we won't go. So it slows down the estrogen effect. So that's actually could be a good thing. Could be. But go ahead and get genetic tests to find out if you're someone that this affects. Again, where are your hormone levels at? So if you are a healthy female, that's the case it should be. If you're going more into the postmenopausal, estrogen levels drop. Now it's going to be more likely to work as an estrogen mimic, and it might be good for you. Ooh, real quick to throw this in here, it's not if you have a food sensitivity or an allergy to soy, which is incredibly common. I'll probably repeat this a few times.
Yeah, don't eat the soy if you have sensitivities.
Any health benefits.
Now there's more inflammation, and we all know how we feel about inflammation.
Yeah, no bueno.
Not so good.
So I mean, that'll come back a lot, where every health benefit I talk about is going to be quickly negated if you have a sensitivity or allergy to it. It just
avoid it, just at all costs.
So the big thing is, I actually did a whole podcast on genetics and how it doesn't really make a big difference. I mean, it does make a little bit. It's the same concept of you go buy a brand new car. 10 years down the road, you look at what happened to that. Maybe it was a sports performance car, right? And then you had a spoiler to it, and then you get in a small wreck, and now the fender's bent, and you had more aftermarket parts and all this stuff. It's not the car it was 10 years ago is the point. More so true with us. We have a genetic slate. We start with that, but the environment and what we do appears in almost everything to be a bigger effect. Here's one that's actually a big difference with genetics. It was actually kind of cool. I like finding something that's an outlier. And this is how the way these phytoestrogens actually are broken down. Meaning a lot of us do respond poorly to soy. Outside of sensitivity, a lot of us, about 50 to 65% of us will have some estrogen raising from phytoestrogens. Some more than others. Again, how responsive we are to it, what is our health, what is our gender, what's our activity, blah, 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 a lot of variables. So this is, again, why you can't just do a mass say, don't eat soy or eat a bunch of soy. I would be lying to anyone if I said either one, because I don't know without going precise into it, hence precision nutrition.
Get tested, or are you guessing?
And a good way to get tested on this one is something actually I didn't know until getting research into this somewhat recently, was bacteria in our gut. The bacteria that we can keep in our gut is actually decided by genetics to an extent. Like there's certain ones we all have.
Mm-hmm.
Lactobacillus, we're going to have different strains of that. E. coli, we're going to keep different strains of that one. But there's several bacteria that can't survive in our gut lining unless we have a certain gene set for it. And these bacteria I'm specifically talking about, I could get the list for you, but there was about 14 known. Again, I'm not going to be able to pronounce them. I'm not going to be able to spell them. They're there. You can genetic test for it.
Yeah.
But what it is these bacteria that 35 to 55% of us do have breaks down these estrogens into something called equal. Equal is awesome.
Not the equal that you sprinkle in your coffee. You shouldn't even be using that. Sorry.
No, good call.
Yeah.
We're very good tangent on them. Not that. Our gut's not producing that. But these bacteria, if we have them, or can hold them, turns these phytoestrogens, mostly the D one, into equal. Equal is awesome because this is now pretty much, aside from other health deficits, guarantees positive effects without estrogen raising. So we've talked a lot about SARMs before, selective androgen receptor modulators.
Mm-hmm.
When equal is created, I don't know if it's a real term or not, but it seems.
Oh.
Selective estrogen receptor
Seems
modulators.
like it should be a thing.
So it's not a thing. We just coined a new term.
We just
so I want
functionize.
We get credit for this. We just functionize the term.
We did.
So the big deal with this is that we'll use a comparison. Because a lot of people are familiar with like hormonal replacement therapy, and then they go on a post cycle. Right. So that way, we'll talk the opposite here: testosterone. Let's say someone's on testosterone replacement therapy, so hormones are a little lower because they're older. So you do need to cycle this stuff, so this way you do not get man boobs, acne, all the effects that come from having too much testosterone. There's things called SARMs that they're still, they're illegal by USADA, so don't use them for sports. It doesn't affect the androgen. It doesn't change your testosterone levels much. This is the same thing with estrogens. As long as you have this equal, or you can produce this equal, you don't have the estrogen side effects. So that's great. That means you can eat, again, aside from other health disparities, you can eat as much soy as you want, and your estrogen shouldn't really increase. Very genetically based. More interestingly, you can probably guess the people that are much more likely to have this. The ones that have been eating soy for generations. Asian descent is the main ones.
It is
so they
staple of their diet.
They evolved on eating
Mm-hmm.
it. So if your great-grandparents, it seems to be about 3 generations out, they ate a lot of it, you're much more likely to. Again, how we talked about the Inuits, how livers are naturally larger because they're just used to, they evolved in that setting.
Yep.
So I am very likely to not have these bacteria equal. I am very far from Asian descent, Native Canadian.
Hey.
Oh my God. I was so heartbroken. I thought I was Native American and realized that the tribes all my family came from was from Canada. And I was always just crapping on Canada because why not? And stop that!
And Tampa Bay Lightning are making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay. Hockeytown, USA, here we go. I was there when they won the last Stanley Cup, so
And when was that?
2004.
Oh, a little trivia, and that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Go Bolts!
I'll just jump in on that one. Why not? But so the big thing is soy good, is soy bad? You can tell a lot. The scent, you can kind of get a good guess. But again, genetic testing will tell you. But there's still times not to have a lot of it. We'll get there. Is that next? It's not quite next. Let's talk about some benefits of soy. Now that I kind of...
You bashed it, but let's say what the good is. There's always benefits to just about everything. Just about everything.
Soy's the golden goose of vegetarian diets. I just like calling it a goose.
It is staple.
Yeah, I mean, so other
protein.
If you have, I don't want to call it fake turkey or soy turkey.
It's tofurkey. That's
yeah.
what it's called, tofurkey. I've had it.
Any vegetarian thing that's not vegetarian turkey, meat, etc.
Tofurkey.
Very likely there's soy in it. If there's not, then you're in a lot more trouble because that's a lot of crap in there.
The chemicals and weird things.
Vegetarian cheese.
Goo. You wouldn't want to keep that.
So check the labels on that one. If there's not soy product, tempeh, tofu, something like that, completely avoided. Like I can't imagine something.
It couldn't be anything
But the reason why it's kind of the big deal is it's one of the few vegetarian complete proteins.
good.
That and quinoa are really the two big ones.
Oh, quinoa.
And by complete proteins means it has all the essential amino acids. There's 20 that our bodies actually use. Well, none of them are essential, meaning we need to eat them. The other 11 we make, but we'll be fine. I am also going to slide in there real quick, but it doesn't mean that they're equal to animal protein. Thought you'd smile on that one.
Yay, steak.
Let's list the positives to it over animal protein. There's fiber. Sure. There's fiber in soy and quinoa that we don't really get in meat.
That is very true.
More B vitamins, some of the B vitamins, and a little bit more of certain minerals like magnesium. But then the meat proteins, just to go positive on that one quick, heme and choline, two biggies. They also happen to be things that those who eat a lot of soy, because they're generally more vegetarian-based diet, are deficient in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some for that. But there's actually other benefits, believe it or not.
There are.
As long as it's not a food sensitivity,
Correct.
It can be a major anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. These increase their effects when they're fermented, like tempeh. Or if you use that soy milk everyone's obsessed with and use that to make kombucha, which I haven't actually had soy kombucha.
Soy kombucha, you say?
You can make it out of anything, really. But soy kombucha, anything that ferments it, increases the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties. So that's pretty cool.
I was not very successful in making kombucha.
Oh, I didn't know you tried.
We did.
Oh, when was this?
I don't know, a while ago.
Okay. Because Kim, she's made kombucha before.
I know she has.
Have you tried it? If I've been hoggish on it, I've been hoggish.
We can share.
It was so good. Kim, we'll trade for some more kombucha. That stuff was awesome.
So I heard.
Dun, dun, dun. Before I get in more trouble, more positive things on soy. It can help regulate, help with mild insulin resistance and blood sugar regulation.
Those are the pluses.
Big pluses. Because those are, two of the major issues of our and
we
many
just
cultures.
talked about glucose and sensitivities and things. Right?
Yeah, probably like 6 of the last 10 shows.
Yeah.
And then here's a kind of positive, kind of negative, depending on the health of the person. DHEA.
Okay, DHEA.
That's a big one. If you don't know what it is, well, again, you should know. We'll talk about it right now.
Excellent.
So one of those phytoestrogens, pick one of them, I can't pronounce them. It was the G one. That one appears it can increase DHEA and lower cortisol levels. Again, if there's no other health problems with it, which that's pretty cool. Lowering cortisol is a huge issue as long as they don't already have low cholesterol from having burnt out adrenals. But if you have high cortisol because you're starting to get really stressed, maybe you got the new job, moving in with somebody, anything that's even positive stress, that might be able to help that. The DHA is kind of cool because that's where kind of the precursor for both estrogens and testosterone. I need a D. Where it comes from. So some of these phytoestrogens can increase your levels of testosterone in theory, and estrogens this way from DHEA, and this is likely, science hasn't proven it yet for myself, but likely where the high estrogen levels come from of soy is you're making a bunch of DHEA. Because if you make a lot of estrogen and testosterone from this DHEA, but you have too much testosterone, what's your body do? It converts it to estrogen from aromatase, which will come up again probably a couple more times if I think about it.
I'm sure it will.
So you
get this conversion factor. Are you getting this? Are you getting all these puzzle pieces?
Did you get the V's? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
DHEA to estrogen to testosterone. If not, you'll read the show notes. It explains it in the way I talk, so hopefully it made sense after a couple of times of going through it. So, again, it can increase estrogen a lot.
So bad in the right amounts and for the right people.
If you're genetically made for it. Again, just like there's a lot of benefits for shellfish. I can't have them. I stop
He
breathing.
would literally be on the floor.
So it doesn't freaking matter.
Don't bring a shrimp cocktail, okay?
Mm-hmm. Maybe next week I'll talk about the bad shrimp.
Shrimp cocktail.
Aren't you having sushi after this?
Yeah.
Dang it. So let's talk about some of the potentially bad outside of the estrogens of having a crap ton of soy. It's a pro-carcinogen. It can be in some people. Again, genetic tests to know. If you have this one receptor, let's call it ERA, estrogen receptor A. Again, I don't know if you have it. I don't know if I have it. I'm going to assume I do because it's safer that way. Because what this does is it means it's a pro-carcinogen. it means it's not directly carcinogenic until you metabolize
Activate it.
So if you eat it, it could become a carcinogen, increasing cancers. Again, if you have high estrogens, this is all or more cancers than just the hormonal. So you can get a double whammy.
So you really don't want to burn your soy.
Right.
Then you have like a double carcinogen.
Yeah,
effect.
that's a really good point. Grilling tofu is a pretty big thing. So if you have this ERA receptor that causes it to be more carcinogenic, you're one of the 65-ish% that doesn't have the bacteria turned equal, increases cancer. Soy can actually be, and then food sensitivity to it, it can actually be really bad.
The triple trifecta of doom.
Triple and trifecta.
I'm just really emphatic on that one.
In some people, this can become a huge issue for soy. And the thing is, I can just talk crap on soy one, but you have these issues with a bunch of food. It just happens to be soy can play with hormones, but you have a couple different genetic predispositions, or you treat your life in a certain way, you can really set yourself up to where, yeah, grilling soy can be relatively pro-cancerous, which is kind of creepy if you like soy.
Not that you think, right? Exactly. Not something you would normally think about when you're.
Oh, and then, yeah, we already talked on that. Oh, it can actually interfere with drugs, which I talked, I think, recently. I think I did a lecture on this. Otherwise, I just talked to too many people on it. Like how CBD can affect drugs, lower the effects of how well it works, because it stays in the body longer in some cases. Phytoestrogens can do that too. With some drugs you don't want to mess with. Not like you really want to mess with drugs.
Right, yeah.
But we're talking chemotherapy drugs.
Wow.
Like tamifaxine, I probably misbutchered that one, but one of the most common ones. It can actually decrease the effectivity of the drug and increase the cancer production. Again, especially we're talking hormonal-based cancers. So if you're in chemotherapy, I will go at more of a blank statement on that. Is you should avoid soy because it might not hurt you if you're genetically set for it, but it's not going to help you. So, I mean, if you're in chemotherapy, I recommend don't have a crap ton of soy. It can also mess with aromatase inhibitors, which most people who are taking excess testosterone, or they're usually not the soy crowd anyway. But if you are, you shouldn't be in this case because it's going to help convert more testosterone to estrogen if you're on these drugs.
Like the opposite of
that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So,
okay then.
And now babies. If something affects babies, this is my personal opinion. I'm not going to call it science, but something's affecting a baby when they're growing and developing because they're much more susceptible to issues because they're growing and developing.
They're brand new.
If it's hurting them, I presume safely that's going to be hurting me, whether it's significant enough for me to notice. But if it's not good for a pregnant woman or an infant that's growing, it's likely not good for me. My statement on that one.
I get it. Babies will break out if you try and feed them soy formula. If you're not breastfeeding for whatever reason, it's a reaction. It means that their bodies cannot process it. They cannot digest it. It is not going to help them grow and thrive.
And these phytoestrogens, this has been an observational study, so this isn't concrete, but again, when it comes with kids in development, you better be safe, in my opinion on this one at least, is that phytoestrogens are still slightly mimicking estrogens, and they appear to mimic for babies a lot more, because again, they don't have the hormones set in there. They're still developing this whole system, so it seems to affect them a lot more. So don't get babies.
Sensitive little babies, they're tiny.
It shows that when they have higher phytoestrogens, not directly shown from soy, but higher phytoestrogens in their systems, a couple things happen. Half pound to a pound and a half lighter on average at birth rate. That could be significant. They don't know if that means the stunted growth as you age. I couldn't find any twin study on one was a soy boy baby and the other wasn't. But it does stunt their growth at birth, apparently. I mean, that's been shown. Also, this is going to be a fun word, but shows that it can affect the hormone reproductive developing system because babies have these higher phytoestrogens in them from like mothers having high soy or soy products for formulas, have a smaller distance from the reproductive genitals and the anus.
Fascinating.
So the non-medical term gooch is shorter, which that's a direct correlation of an underdeveloped reproductive system. So again, it's affecting children's reproductive system.
Yeah.
Even if it only slows it down, it doesn't stop it, which we don't know. I wouldn't recommend giving soy to children under the ages of at least 5. And again, there are formulas that soy in.
Several.
So it's kind of scary. It gets scarier when the next topic I'm going to talk about is going to be BPA, and that's all over formulas as well.
Ooh, that is. Check those bottles. You don't even want to know.
Oh, that's right. That's right now. So spot on BPA. If you want to talk BPA, or should I get this one? You already have hit on models, but
look at the number on the bottom. You know, those plastic bottles, all those recyclables. Yeah, not so good.
So BPA is a synthetic chemical that was used
toxic. It's toxic.
Very cancerous.
Yes.
Very strong estrogen mimic. So this is not at all compared to the phytoestrogen.
So think about what you're putting in those containers. Now that is leaching into your foods, your waters, and now you're consuming all of that extra toxic garbage.
So when you hear people say don't use plastic bottles, don't use plastic containers, BPA is why. It's even worse when people microwave it.
Don't eat it. I was just going to say, do not eat it.
Very carcinogenic. Like very.
Might as well don't eat.
For something that's so widely distributed, it's up there as a no-no. And it's a lot more things than you would think. It's not just plastics. The inside of pretty much all metal cans, any canned foods, it's in there. The inside of plastic containers that a lot of supplements come in has it in there. One I didn't know until recently, it kind of scared me, but it's not my concern. Feminine hygiene products. It's all, a lot of those.
And you'll actually notice there are more brands coming out with safer products claiming to be BPA free.
Ooh,
yeah.
Good call on that one though. Check the label, even to say BPA free, because a lot of companies now, again, it's marketing. Like we said, sugar free does not mean healthy. Fat free does certainly not mean healthy. BPA free doesn't necessarily mean that either, because they're now replacing with BPS and BPF, which are almost the exact same freaking things, because they're still using it for the same reason.
Sneaky little cheeky monsters.
Sneaky cheeky. So just because it says BPA free, check, because there might be BPS or BPF, and it's basically the same thing, just a small difference. It causes all the same issues. So they can call it a BPA free product, but it's still likely to be very cancerous.
There you go.
They put it in these bottles for reasons, and it's all for cost, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And BPA is a big issue. Not only is it carcinogenic, which I think is a good enough reason to try to avoid it. It's been directly correlated with like everything else: obesity, type 2 diabetes, thyroid issues. Again, all these things that have been skyrocketing. People.
And they're avoidable.
Incredibly.
They're reversible.
These weren't issues 200 years ago. So what have we done differently?
Plastic bottles 200 years ago.
It drives me nuts when people like, no, you don't eat eggs, don't eat meat, don't eat the stuff that we were eating 200 years ago. You know, it's all the new stuff, people. Trust me, I'm talking people. I don't know who the heck people is. We'll assume it's not you guys because you listen to us.
Yeah.
Right? We'll we might have coined 2 words today. Productive. Jim, we're going to throw these on the Urban Dictionary.
Something else for you to do.
You wanted things to do on the flight, right?
Yeah, I did.
So we make a few words for your flight home.
Okay.
So, do you have any more on that, or should we talk about how scary water is?
Oh, let's talk water.
Because I love water.
Let's talk water and my funky things that my husband would say. Why don't you drink the water that's been sitting out on your nightstand in the morning? Because it tastes sweet to me. And I don't like stale water. And my dad.
Does water get stale?
It does.
I've never looked into this before, but I wanted to argue it.
It tastes different. And that could be whatever container is in is now leached into the water overnight. That's possible.
Room temperature changes it?
Yeah. I actually don't mind room temperature water.
So I'm curious if water actually gets stale.
It tastes funny. So
I'll give taste does change. I'll give that.
It's just weird.
Maybe we'll have this as a future debate.
I do not drink stale bottled water.
And unfortunately, it doesn't.
I never finish my drinks anyway. So
anyway, there's always a cup sitting around. If it's full of something, it's yours. If it's dirty, it's Jim's from 3 months ago.
And if it's half empty, it's fine. Like even my kids, Mom, you never finish any drinks.
So water. There's a crap ton of estrogen in our water supply. Over the estimate was 2,000 synthetic forms of estrogens. So who the heck knows where they came from? Well, I mean, we kind of know where they came from. But they get processed. So how do they actually get into the water? This story gets really scary. I'll start with the birth controls. This is one that I heard about, and it scared the crap out of me a couple years ago, that the
Did you
estrogens
thought
from
you
our,
were getting boobs?
yeah, I was in the gym too much. After a chest day, I walked down the stairs and I felt them flop and it hurt. That part's serious. I remember undergrad walking down steps after a major chest day and they're flopping like I guess in how women feel. Don't yell at me, I'm sure I don't, but it was similar enough from what you guys tell me about. That's exactly what you're talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
So a lot of these synthetic estrogens in there. I first blamed it completely on birth control because why not blame something on
Something
that has nothing
else.
to do with me?
Yeah.
But it's part of it where estrogens bind to the hydrogen molecules in water. I'll say we as if I take it, pee it out, it goes in the water.
It flushes it, right.
But the estrogens stay attached to that hydrogen. It gets evaporated, goes up into the clouds. Clouds do its magic thing, it rains down, it's still in our water supply. That's scary to me. That our human bodies and nature itself couldn't actually clean up the water from these estrogens.
That is pretty terrifying.
And they're a bunch of artificial estrogens, so they don't even act in our body the same way as what we had growing and made. Good news is it shows that birth control is only about 1 to 5% of that. So birth control is not the biggest thing to blame. That's the good news. So I can't
tell me what the bad news is.
Something else causes it other than 99 to 95%, and it's much worse stuff.
Oh, tell me the much worse.
One is BPAs. That's the small one.
All right.
5 to 15% of the estrogens in our water supply is BPAs. It gets scary. It's like, oh, we'll just drink bottled water. Just drink glass bottled water. It doesn't matter. 60% of bottled water companies that were tested had mild to moderate estrogen, synthetic estrogens in there. And that's then big brands. And said mild to moderate. They weren't counting scarce, which means there's a little bit tiny in there. They didn't count it. There had to be X amount where they consider mild. I couldn't find the numbers of what it was. Yeah. 60% of bottled water. That's including glass bottle.
Extensive glass bottle, and we did that whole test with the Mountain Valley water.
It has less. Glass bottles have about half as much estrogens in it, so that's probably showing the BPA from the bottle itself increases it. But still, it doesn't matter how you get your water. You're drinking
Where
estrogens.
is that water coming from?
And then you look at municipality sewer treatment water, tap water. There's 85 synthetic chemicals normally that come in from medicine, estrogens, chemicals that we put in.
What are you flushing down those toilets, people?
It's scary because we're drinking this. So you can get filtered water and you're still getting these contaminants. And that just sucks. Like, how do you get clean water?
Because you need clean water. We got to go to Fiji. I don't know.
Fiji's better than anywhere off the Potomac. I don't know how to pronounce this. I can't pronounce things. In case you were wondering, I'm awful at that. But to bring this home a little bit is the Potomac. We'll call it that one right now. So other than us that drink water, everything else drinks water too.
All your animals.
Let's target fish because our marine life has gone to crap. Between everything gets dumped in the oceans. One reason why I'm picking on this river is that 80% of the fish actually have that they've been checking.
Mutated?
Yeah, their reproductive glands have been mutated, where they're considered intersexual fish.
What?
Where they have some male fish parts, some female fish parts, and some of them can still reproduce. And these
more mutant fish?
Yeah, more mutant fish.
Oh my! This is okay. Reason enough for me not to eat fish.
Yeah, and these estrogens that seem to affect 3 generations down of fish. And we're eating these fish. We're drinking the water that these fish are living in.
So these are fresh, or these are farm-raised fish, or these are wild fish?
Anything that's in this specific site is coming from that river.
Okay.
So that is taking out actually how the fish are. And what's worse is that river supplies water for 4 million people. And just not good. So, I mean, that's in the extreme version, but that's in all of our water supply. That scares the crap out of me.
If you need water, you will die without water.
So the other big things, we hit BPA. The biggest one that's getting estrogens in water supply is it's all of our fault, humans' fault, is from our livestock. This is not I'm not going from anti-veggie to anti-meat. It's what we're doing to mess up these cows. We're injecting full of hormones, go figure. Hence the hormone-free part. But all cows, we're injecting with hormones. I mean, if they're males and we're trying to get the meat from it, human growth hormones, testosterone, a bunch of those synthetics. to make them big, beefy. We do it to our dairy cows too, and that's where the estrogen comes into play.
Mhm.
We're shoving estrogens, progesterones, and other synthetics
And
into
you're
them.
drinking cow milk. And you're not cows.
And the
We'll
reason,
never, ever, ever stop saying that.
No. Because we're not going to change. Well, I don't know. Maybe if we drink enough, we will start morphing into
Maybe.
intersexual cow people.
Maybe we'll moo.
But
You know, what is it? What DNA doesn't splice? Pig and elephant DNA just doesn't splice in South Park. Did you ever watch that one?
oh
Because
yes,
they were genetically mutating
Oh my
all
gosh.
these animals.
it makes me think of man bear pig.
Yes!
Another South Park reference. Now we know we can end the show soon. But yeah,
We're really smart people, but we have to veg out somehow.
So estrogens are going to these cows to produce more milk, so synthetic hormones to make more of this milk that we're not supposed to be drinking naturally, and then also to make it so that they can produce milk sooner. So the point being, okay, who cares? It's in cows. When we're eating these freaking cows, oh, we don't eat dairy cow. You're right. We drink the milk. What if I don't drink the milk? We're talking about water.
Ice cream.
Ooh,
Ice cream.
good point.
Cheese. It's everywhere.
I was gonna go back to how it's in the water, but I mean, ice cream scares a lot of people too. Right? So these cows they're crapping and peeing in the field. It gets washed off or evaporated, and then when it goes back rain, it's in our water supply. And then
Cycle.
like a circle,
Cycle.
not a triangle, like a circle. What show was that?
Not the bee.
I don't remember. But and then the fertilizer, because we're using fertilizer because it helps plants grow, and that's also have all those hormones. So we screwed the pooch kind of on that one, but I mean that's why we have so much estrogen in our water, and it's kind of hard to avoid. So that's the doomsday message. We're drinking estrogens no matter what, but you can lower the chances of it. One is make sure your hormones are in check. Get tested. And that's one of the things I do regularly for people is the most common test that we run through Functionize, at least as far as I'm concerned, because it's the ones I run the most, is food sensitivities, hormone panel, and then thyroid panel, which thyroid is hormones in my mind. It's the same stuff. Because they're all out of whack with people. If there's not an abnormality, that itself is abnormality. So it's creepy. At least we know why, so that's a step forward to be able to fix it. And not drinking water is not the answer. Trust me, it's not. But there's better supplies of it. Keep it more in glass bottles. Do it more purified if you can. It is better when you add extra purifiers outside of just the tap water. It's like the best of a bad situation.
Correct.
But so, wrapping that one up, soy won't necessarily cause you to become less masculine, but it very well might. Genetics are going to determine a lot of that. When in doubt,
test it out.
Yeah, test it out. Or just don't go for it. Avoid it during certain circumstances. If you're curious if it's best or not for you, which is actually where this whole tangent came from, was that one of my patients asked me why I'm against soy because I was talking down on soy a little bit. So hopefully this answers some of the questions. I'm not against it. I just can't, for my reasons, I can't have it. If you can, power to you, because I used to actually like tofu. Not as much as steak. I still prefer steak. I used to do a lot of cooking of tofu.
It's fun.
It tastes anything like you want.
Yeah.
It's like mushrooms or rice. It'll taste like anything that you make it taste like.
Yes.
Which is why I loved it.
It's adaptable.
And then I learned don't overcook it because then it gets really mushy and it basically turns into water, which that was kind of cool. I don't know. I'm going to go off on a tangent. How about you go get your sushi?
The kids want sushi.
I want sushi.
You get
burgers. I
burgers.
want anything other than.
You get burgers.
Actually, even give me burgers. Just throw cheese on it. It's a whole new animal.
It
Same animal.
is. It is. Soon enough.
And tequila.
Soon enough.
I'll decide if I'm fasting after phase 3 of the Keto Project. I probably will. Probably not the first day. I'm just saying.
We shall see.
So
thank you for joining us on this episode of Fun Friday. It has been fun. We will have your mad scientist back here next week for whatever topic is the topic of the day.
Yeah,
So
in a couple of weeks, for any of those that are watching that are members first now, I'll probably talk about them. In a couple of weeks, I don't have a date yet because I want to be able to eat first. As I threw it at you, likely going to do a little taste test on fat bombs. All I've been doing is thinking about food. In my free time, I think about food. So I'm looking at doing possibly doing a blind. I don't even care if it's blind. Do a taste test because I am very slowly working on a cookbook, and I'm going to say, hey, the top 3 are going to be thrown in there.
Awesome.
I got things from Buffalo Blue Cheese Fat Bombs, your standard peanut butter cheesecake, banana nut,
Fascinating.
a couple other more, we'll call it creative
You
ones.
have sweet and savory?
I'm trying to, Danny's making sure I do sweet ones.
Ooh.
That's not my thing.
Savory would be fun.
But buffalo chicken inside of blue cheese stuff. I've done the buffalo, not the chicken parts. That's gonna be a fun experiment. That's gonna be a show. Is you guys get to watch us eat and probably drink and talk about how good it is. Hopefully, how good it is. Otherwise, I don't know. That's not gonna be good promotion. But that's what I've got to look forward
All right.
to.
So,
Otherwise, I don't know what we're doing next week.
who knows? We never know. We'll get there.
I'll be celebrating almost being done phase
Yes,
3.
we will.
Watch more information of it for the Keto Project because stuff's going up. Jim's doing stuff close to right now. He might still be flying. We'll say right now he's doing. Right now he's helping out for it. For more information of what he's doing and what we've been talking about, again, www.functionize.com/keto.html. Which reads the whole website because there's a bunch of other cool stuff like what we do here. That's kind of cool.
That is cool. What we do is really cool.
Yeah.
So if you haven't come into the Fit Lab, come see us. We'll happily show you around and give you a tour in the most amazing way. Yeah. Okay.
I love
So
the amazing. But, yeah. Should we just say we're out? Because usually we just keep rambling until Jim
Beauty
stops
Brains
in and
Brawn
says,
is out.
Dr. Mike's out.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.